All right. Well, hey, Darla, how are you?
Oh, good, Lynette. Very good. Thank
Good.
you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited to have you. There's a really good story behind how you and I met. You are a bit of a blast from the past, but more through your husband, Terry. Terry and I went to high school together. We're both
Yes.
from Regina, Saskatchewan. And I know that you and Terry this is your second marriage. So I never got an opportunity to meet you other than maybe about a year ago through Instagram. You were following me. I started following you. And I thought I should just dig in a little bit here and find out exactly who is this woman. And you have such an amazing story. You still reside in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. But your story really resonated. And although you're not 50 quite yet, I thought, you're close enough. But the story is so impactful that everybody will find themselves at some point in your story. And that really is where you finally found the courage to leave your corporate 9 to 5. And I want you to, I'm going to hand the floor over to you. I want you to give me a little bit of the background. On our pre-call, you had, that moment, that tipping point, which I'm just going to hand it over to you now and just tell us a little bit who you are and where you're currently at.
Right on. Well, again, thanks, Lynette. I'm really excited to be here. And just so you know, this is my second podcast
Yeah.
that I've done. And honestly, like even a year ago, I wouldn't even imagine that I would have been asked to be on a podcast because it's like sort of like, what the heck would I have to say to, or would people want to talk to me about or hear what I have to say? So like there's that. And I'll
Yeah.
talk a little bit maybe more about that and how I, just continuously work on that every single day in terms of like being like, yeah, like stand up, be present, be seen, use your voice, and
And maybe a little bit of
use your
imposter
gifts.
syndrome.
So, I mean, like
Yeah.
this. I just have to recognize that right now that you are giving me not only a platform to, of course, share my story, which I'm happy to do, but you're also giving me another gift, Lynette, which is, giving me the gift of being able to use my voice and, and continuing to challenge myself, to show up and to be seen and heard. So that is difficult for me. I have a lot of people who have told me like, "Wow, you like never seem nervous, and you're such a natural, and you speak really well, and you seem so confident." And the truth is, like for like so many, in particular women, is we get caught up in this imposter syndrome and we think that like we're like faking it, and there's this part of me that challenges myself every single day to like know that no, this is actually who you are, this is your truest essence, and that's okay. And so anyways, I just wanted to say thank you for all of those things that you're providing me today, aside from just being able to be here and share my story. So anyways, there's that.
No, so before we even get into it, I mean, I really appreciate that. And everything you just said there, I want to really unpack into this episode because, being seen, using your voice, and that, the perception that you're super confident is, there's a lot of that. I know I face that all the time too. I've even said it on one of my podcasts. Like a lot of people think I'm super confident, but I have internal conflicts as well. But yeah, it's just how do you keep pushing forward? And I want to get into that, but
Yeah.
let's start first.
Yeah.
Who's Darla? Tell us
Okay.
about Darla.
Oh my gosh. So as you mentioned, I have really had some like big life changes over the last year in particular. But I've been on a journey, I would say, for a couple of years, for sure, for about 3 years. And if I start at the very beginning, it would be, and I know Lynette, you and I have obviously spoke about this offline and had a great sort of discussion about this time that happens, for a lot of people and a lot of women, where we're sort of in this place, and I call it the box. We're in the box of, your sort of mid-career, midlife. You are, but you are sort of like feeling like there is something off. And to go to sort of the theme of finding your truest essence, that really was my starting point, was like, man, how did I get so misaligned? And why do I just feel like every day is a struggle showing up? And every day I'm just feeling like, again, just misaligned with who I am and how I want to show up. And so that's sort of where I was in my life. And, as a result, there was all sorts of things that were happening, that like I was making bad decisions. I was, like arguing with my husband a lot. I was just feeling like I wanted to run from something, and I didn't even know what I was running from. But it was like
Yeah.
every day I felt like I was like running from something, and I was just putting on this sort of mask, and just showing up for the sake of showing up, because it was, another day, another dollar type
Yeah.
mentality. But and so the sort of like the tipping point for me was, I was at a meeting in Ottawa.
Yeah.
And it was a big meeting, and all of my colleagues were there. I worked for a large national organization. I was really, what I did every single day was stakeholder management.
Yeah.
And so really, I was herding cats. I was, making sure relationships were sound, which they weren't in many cases. I was, always sort of tangled in messes and conflict, in, just trying to keep people happy that didn't want to be happy. I guess that's the only way I
Yeah.
can say it.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I was never in this place of like, creativity building, like all of these like wonderful things, like with this, high energy, all of those, like I wasn't in that place. And so, anyways, but that, just a little
So
bit
okay,
about
so
where I
let's
was
back up.
every day.
Okay, perfect. So let's just back up. So you were in a corporate role. What was your position? What was your title at that time?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was the regional director. So for an organization that did a national organization that does sort of labor relations and
Okay,
that type of field. And I oversaw sort of our political and day-to-day activities in the prairie provinces, so Alberta,
right.
Saskatchewan, Manitoba.
And
Um,
so that's where the stakeholdering really came into play because that was
yeah.
really your role. And how
Yeah.
long were you working for this company?
And so I was in that position. I was with that organization for 17 and a
17,
half years.
17 and a half years.
But
Okay,
who's
so
counting?
but who's counting? Okay, so then what we do is you're on a flight, you go to Ottawa, and you're
Yes.
in this
Yeah.
meeting,
Big meeting. And by the
big meeting.
way, I had gotten so used to not being seen, and I'll literally set this up for you so you can
Yeah.
visualize it. So you can kind of understand the organization, which is like, it's quite old. It was founded in 19, oh my gosh, I don't know, 50 or
Yeah,
something like that. So
sure.
it's like 60 some years old, whatever. Um, and or 70 years old now or something. So it's an old institution and organization, and not much has changed in it. And so
Right.
when we would go to meetings, these meetings, literally, as staff, there is sections based on the hierarchy of the
Oh,
position
wow.
you have. Yeah, like it's like
So
really
VP
quite.
sat at the table,
Oh,
director
totally.
sat at the kids
Yes. And
table,
so
and if you were lower than a director,
that's
then you
right.
were
Yeah. We were
actually sitting in a
literally
chair in the corner.
Right.
Yes.
We were literally cordoned off by like one
Wow.
of those, when you go to the theater, like honestly, we're literally courting.
Okay, so we've got a horrible culture you're working in for sure.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so really your tipping point was probably many months before that or even years before that, but it was
Yeah.
this absolute moment. So you're in this meeting. What
Yes.
happens in this meeting?
So at this meeting, and it wasn't like at the meeting, but
Yeah.
it was on the
What
side.
what was that one thing that triggered you?
Yeah. So really what it was I had a disagreement with a colleague that was senior to me, um, and uh, and he was like he was a jerk. He was just a
Yeah.
jerk. I don't know how else to say it. And
Yeah.
he was just like sequentially the absolute type of person that I just like was completely oil water, like just completely um had a hard time connecting with. I just we just were just opposite people. And I remember we got into this disagreement. I don't even remember what the issue was, but
Yeah.
anyways, the point is I left that meeting feeling really discouraged, really upset. I was just, I just it was just like this fire inside of me going, hell no. Like,
Yeah.
I have got to make some big changes. Like, I have got to do something about this. And I was flying back from Ottawa, and for anybody that's done the Ottawa or Toronto flight back to the prairies, it's a long and boring flight, so you have lots of time to reflect
Yeah.
and do deep thinking. And I just recall, I did nothing. I literally was on a window seat and I looked out the window the entire flight, and I just sort of made this declaration in that moment, that I was going to make big changes in my life, that were gonna like shake me to the core. And I just didn't know what that looked like or sort of any of the details of it, but I knew enough to know that this was serious for me. And it was almost like when I declared it and I set that intention, it's literally like my whole body felt it. Like
Wow.
there was
Like a
this deep,
release.
yeah, there was this deep knowing and release that I was going to now set myself on a journey that was going to be, like kind of get ready, because I was going
Yeah.
to just embark on this journey that was going to be truly to find sort of who I was at my truest essence.
Okay. And you know what? Okay, and that is that moment where you said, I am going to make a change. And
Right.
I've been there. I think I was there like about 8 years ago. And I just remember circling this thing and like, this is me. And what am I going to do? And I think I had read the book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And that really stimulated this desire to change. But then it was like, what do I do?
Mm.
And so how did you know? So you get off the plane, you go home, and your family's there. So keep going with the story.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a for those that know me, that they wouldn't be surprised about this, because I can be quite a feisty
Yeah.
woman when I want to be. I get that honestly from my mother, for sure, for sure.
Okay. Good.
Um, but I literally like for me, it seemed like I like kicked in the door, my front door, and marched in my kitchen. My husband was home, and he was just sitting on the couch. And I don't even think I got like a hello out of my mouth, or like, hey, anything, I'm home, how's it going? Nothing like that. I literally stomped in the kitchen with intention and just looked at him and said, like, I'm changing my life, and either you're with me or you're not. I don't give a heck. I'm doing it. And I just like, again, just like with full force and passion, sort of belted this out. And I'll never forget, like he was literally like his face, he was just like stunned, right? Like you just like got punched in the face or something, you know, punched in the nose. You know, and I kind of did. So he just like sat there for a second and was like, okay,
Yeah.
hello. I don't know
Yeah.
what that means, but of course I'm with you. And that's all he said.
Awesome. That's
And,
amazing.
you know, and I honestly, he has been with me like full force, like my ride or die, like, you know, partner, you know, full support ever since. Like, honestly, it's almost like I go to him to get a reaction for him to try and like tell me I can't do something, right? And it's so funny, even to the years later, I, you know, and by the way, I'm going to be doing this now, and I'm going to be quitting my job, just so you know. And it's like I'm waiting for him to be like, no, you're not, you know. And like secretly, I think I like want him to, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like I want to, you know, you try and sometimes you try and give yourself excuses and outs so you don't have to do something, right? And so I, you know,
Well, it's the
use,
fear, right?
it's
Like
the
if
fear,
you know, if
right?
it's the fear, and then all of a sudden it's those things that you were talking about before. It's the imposter syndrome and
Ah,
finding your voice, and I'm
totally.
not usually that way. And yeah, okay, so
Yeah.
perfect. So
And so he'd be
so
like,
Terry's on board.
yeah. So he would just be like, awesome. I do think you should quit your job. Yeah. Like,
So you decided you were quitting your job that day,
wait.
or was this a little bit
No.
later?
So
Oh,
what
okay,
I did was literally I spent, I would say, a couple of years, not a couple of years for sure, um, immersing myself in anything and everything I could get my hands on, that like would build me up and like help me figure out who I am and how I wanted to show up in the world, like literally. And
really?
again,
Okay,
this
good.
idea that it was on this journey to find the essence of who I was, because I had spent so many years, you know, just um outside of that, like just showing up in a paid position, sort of like in robot mode, you know, with this speaking script and in this message box and doing things this way because that's the way you're supposed to do it. Like, you know, I just, and, you know, everybody, many people, most people know what I'm talking about. I know you
Yeah,
do, Lynette. Like, we all just,
the stereotypical lifestyle.
yeah,
We live
just,
our lives so stereotypically. We put ourselves in these boxes, and we just keep motion forward. And then
yes,
in midlife, we get to this stage where, well, now it's too late. I can't go and collect new skills and then make a new change. But it sort of sounds like that's what you did. You spent a
yeah,
couple of years collecting possibly new skills, but also digging deeper into what your true
yeah,
essence, which you refer to your true essence. You use that saying, and that really is like, what is your purpose and what's going to make you happy and what are you going to live by?
yeah.
So you spend
I
a
was just
couple,
gonna say, you know, you could, it really is purpose as well, right? What is my
yeah,
purpose? So I worked with some wonderful people, in particular women, over this 2 year period. I worked with a life coach. I was in a few small mastermind groups. I attended conferences. I even went to a conference in Arizona. I just kept moving forward an inch every single day, just based on what felt good. And I was so not used to that, like having to, like actually doing what I wanted to do and doing things that felt good. I ripped apart one of my spare bedrooms and made it into like this, you know, the Darla room, where I literally would lock myself in there every morning for an hour, and I would immerse myself in like meditation, in journaling, in you know, podcasts like yours, Lynette. And I would just do anything to immerse myself and align myself with people and messages that felt good and that resonated, that felt good at the core and helped me bring that out in myself. And so I did that for a lot of years, and it wasn't even contemplating at that time leaving my job, but through evolution, like just through this process, I started to think about, you know, okay, like I wonder what it would look like if I wasn't the director, if I wasn't the director at the organization I was at. And like, I also at that time, you know, COVID had happened now. So now we're in COVID. And
Yeah.
so everything's online. And so again, I was so busy for 17 and a half years being busy, that, you know, I didn't have a lot of time to think about like what, or imagine actually, what could another
Right.
life look like, um, where I was in charge of it and I was building it. Like I, you know, build your own life. Like I wouldn't even have had contemplated that, prior to COVID, right? But I had all of a sudden this extra time. Like my daughter's 25, she's in Calgary. You know, Terry's children are also adults, you know, so it's just him and I.
So it
So
was,
I was in this
yeah,
part of my life where I actually, and I wasn't traveling now, which was fabulous. um, and I thought I'd miss it, but oh my gosh, totally. I can't even imagine. I think back now to that life and I think, oh my gosh, I would never want that again for anybody. It's an awful and unhealthy life, by the way, to be on the road all the time. So here I was in COVID, I had this time, and even like, I was attending meetings all the time, but they were online, and I just would like get lost literally in these meetings. And I would think to myself, oh my gosh, like this is a meeting about nothing. Like this is
yeah,
like there is like this is literally a meeting to show up to a meeting to talk about nothing. Well,
yeah,
and I guess
yeah,
I'm
no,
being a little
yeah,
bit crude, but I just like that's how I felt. I'm like,
yeah,
this literally means nothing to me. This means
yeah.
nothing to me. And
So
I
Darla,
could really
before you
care
go
less
on,
about this, what we're talking about.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
so I
So, but
started,
before, I just want to like just stop you for a moment. And I really liked what you said a little bit ago, where you went down this, you started down this path, came home, you said to your husband, "I'm going to be making this change. You're either with me or you're not." And he's like, "Okay, I'm with you." But you did your job right away. But you had
right.
already put in your mind that you were making changes. And so you didn't necessarily know what those changes were going to be, but you sort of, you said, I took one step at a time. And one step led to the next, that led to the next, that led to the next. And I really like that because I think that a lot of people, when they're trying to make a change, they get, oh, I got to make a change. And they get sort of in and they start to like throw spitball some ideas and then they start, doing those ideas, but yet they struggle with quitting their job. So I really liked how you had the opportunity to, really take the time to focus on your meditation, make your Darla room. I love that. And if everybody had an opportunity to make their own room, it would be like all
Yes,
whiteboards with different things that you could do, creating vision,
I
manifestation,
know.
meditation, all that
Yeah.
kind of. I actually could visualize that room, the Darla room. I love
It,
it.
it was my
So
space. It was my
yeah,
space. Yeah.
yeah, and educating yourself through your podcast. So I think I love the message of just getting started down a path of something, and if you can start first with fixing within, that is definitely a really nice approach because then you start to get quiet, and quietness comes answers, and it's hard to explain that unless you've done it. And I think that's where making a change, a radical change, especially when you leave a 17-year position, which is probably pretty lucrative. And, it always comes with this like sort of golden handcuffs of the position and all that kind of stuff. You have to get quiet. And that's where you find your answers. And unless you really uh, embrace that and believe that, you'll always be struggling through life trying to figure out what's the right way. So I wanted to just kind of
Ugh.
appreciate that you had said that. So you are 2 years later, you're working on yourself, you're working on other opportunities, you're trying, and so now you're getting quiet and some things are starting to shut, some things that could potentially be your purpose. So back to you.
Yeah. So, so just like fast. like fast forward, because I've actually named it, like it through this whole process. And even like today, I can definitely tell you that I figured out that I literally am in my truest essence when I'm connected to people. And so that is just a must in my life. Like when I am connected to people, I am at like my highest potential, and the just like all of the best of me comes out. And I'll give you an example of what I mean, because that's how I built my business. Because, there's this whole other thing where I've built now this business. I decided to leave my job just last year, or what? No, actually, it's earlier this year. I left my job. I quit at the end of last year, and my final sort of exit was in early January of this year. But before I made that leap and decided to like give my notice and say it's over, I really, 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 and to your point, Lynette, had to get so deep and so inward. It was such a process to say, okay, you're on the cliff. Like, are you ready to jump? And do you believe that that parachute is going to open when
Oh,
you
that
jump
is
and make the
so
leap? And
amazing.
and I'm telling you, it was the scariest, and is the scariest thing I've ever done to this day, was to just believe in yourself. And it's the first time in my life I've ever felt like this. And just the conviction of saying, Darla, you got this. You can do
Wow.
this. Like,
That's
just
amazing. I
believe
love
that the
it.
parachute is going to open, and that, the universe has got your back.
And that
And
I
that's
love that.
that's what I did. And I
Yeah,
just
I
believed,
love that.
yeah, and I
Yeah,
just
I love
believed,
that because
Lynette, that if I was in connection with people, and I used that as my North Star, just go towards being in connection with people, that I would build my business based on that, that I would find my community based on that, that I would, all of these things, if I was in connection with people, that I would be given everything I need to be successful.
yeah, no, that's good. And I've had other guests on where we've had similar conversations where, instead of having everything totally figured out and planned, it's kind of like you have an idea, and believing in yourself and just getting on that path, and the rest will present itself. And that's literally, so in your case, it was the parachute shoot. You believed that it was going to open and you were going to jump off a cliff,
Yes.
and you were going to have a soft landing. Okay. So you've now jumped off the cliff. This is before you've quit your job. You had an idea of what you were going to do when you took the big leap. How did you come up with Cedar and Sage retreats?
Oh my God. So Cedar and Sage was not Cedar and Sage in its first inception. So, by the way, there's been probably 5 or 6 iterations of Cedar and Sage. It actually
Perfect.
started out, when it's like, okay, what do you want to do with your life? Okay, so I started out with a business idea that I knew that I was just starting to, merge lots of like, what do I love to do? What am I, good at? What are my like sort of natural talents and skills that I bring to the table, and how do I build a business around that? So but the first inception was literally a company called Elevated Events. And I was going to open an events company. And I worked on that for a while, and it just didn't feel right, because I was thinking to myself, because then you start digging in and you're just like, okay. And I started thinking about weddings. People were asking me about weddings, like when my business colleagues, right? Like, business coaches and my life coaches and stuff. Okay, well, here's how you build an events company. And, I'd learn through books and, online and all of that. And then it started getting to the gritty details. And I thought, oh my gosh, this whole idea of bridezilla and, weddings and all of that. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, that sounds awful. Like, organizing and, all of those details. And by the way, I'm not like a super detailed person to begin with.
Yeah.
But I just like the idea of, again, I was this idea of searching for how can I be in connection with people? I know I'll do an events company
Even.
because I'll just,
Yeah.
have fun and we'll have fun. And like, but as I sort of like worked on that and as I really thought that out, I thought, oh no, I actually don't want to do that.
Right.
So
But,
that was like the
testing the idea, right? So you
starting
tested the
point.
idea. So it's good. Yeah.
Yes,
Perfect.
I
Okay.
did
So
some
then,
testing and very quickly figured out that that was not, in fact, how I wanted to connect with people.
right.
So then I, again, just through time and through process, I started to think about like, okay, back to the drawing board. Okay, Darla, like, what do you what like literally, what do you love to do? Like, what did you love to do? What parts of the job, that 17 years, like, what are the
Yeah.
parts of that job that you did love? And I actually started to
Hmm.
go back and think, like, what did I really like about my job? Because of course, I mean, there's tons of things I loved about my job. There was, beautiful people that I met along the way and all of these wonderful relationships and connections and so many opportunities and things I learned. I got to do so many neat things. So, I want to be really clear that I really did enjoy a lot of the part, much of my time over those 17 years with the organization I was with. So there was just some things I didn't like, and I could definitely be like, ugh. Um,
Okay. So
but
you dug a little deeper and
what
you
I
sat
did,
down and
yes.
what
So
was I passionate? What did I like? Yes.
here's what I figured out is I loved being a teacher. And
Okay.
I got the opportunity in many instances throughout my time to be a teacher and to teach people and be in front of people, because we had a lot of education that we offered our members. And so I loved presenting, I loved teaching, I loved connecting. Like that, when I was in my element and when I was, in sort of like able to be my most authentic self, and in connection with people, was when I was in a classroom with
Okay.
people. And I just like, and it was like an aha moment for me. I was like, yeah, I love being a teacher. Like I love learning and I love teaching and I love just like that thing that happens, that magic that happens when you're in a classroom with other adults and with other people. And so I was like, aha, that is something I'm going to hang my hat on as something that
Awesome.
I think I'm pretty good at. And I think that I could offer the world. And so that was a starting point. And from there, I then started just drawing in my other experiences because at Cedar and Sage, we're more than a retreat company. We like build authentic experiences for people. Like we want people to connect with not just each other, but we want them to connect with, themselves, most importantly, each other, through relationship building, but also the land. Like there's all of these elements that we try and bring in that is different than just a normal sort of typical workshop or business meeting or strat planning session
Right.
that you might go to, at your work, right? And so
So,
I just
so
wanted
I'm just
to,
going to stop you there for a
yeah,
second. So, Cedar and Sage is a company that is focused not on the personal side of things. I mean, you are focused on the people themselves that come to these retreats, but they are retreats that you offer organizations.
yeah. So
Yes. Okay.
again, thinking about iterations. So when we launched Cedar and Sage, we launched Cedar and Sage thinking that we were going to do a lot of personal retreats. But that quickly, I mean, I quickly figured out that that wasn't necessarily the right fit, because first of all, we were in the throes of COVID. So getting together obviously
Yeah.
wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
um, and so there was that. But also, we've done a couple of personal retreats, and there'll be something we continue to do here and there. We've committed to doing, two for sure a year, one in the spring, one in the fall. We're actually planning our fall one right now. But where I really think that what I discovered was that really where the need is in organizations and people. We figured out that the mission was that we wanted to heal organizations. Like we wanted to dig into organizations in a completely different way that's never been done before, or not
Right.
at least not in the way that we were going to be
Right.
presenting our retreats. So
Right.
that's, it's been an evolution, and it's been a process, but we are like, everything about what we're doing is custom from beginning to end. And we want to know the good, the bad, the ugly. And you know where it's based on, Lynette? It's based on my own experience, because I thought, oh my gosh, if only there was a cedar and sage that could have helped our organization.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I think it would have, done had a big impact in our organization, and I hope they do. I hope they
Maybe
do
the,
think
yeah,
about
maybe there
bringing
will
in
be
cedar and
feedback.
sage.
Okay, so you're going through these iterations. I want to get more into the journey that you went through personally in your mindset on the several different iterations. Like, so that's over a period of probably 2 or 3 years, and you've got this idea, and it's not really the right idea. So then you scrap that. You found another opportunity, but along the path, were you not thinking like, oh, maybe this is just like not what I should be doing. How am I going to figure this thing out? Did you ever like have any sort of, we know that the point from A
every
to B is
every
not always
single
straight. Yeah.
day,
Right. So
every
how did
single
you
day.
manage that internal conflict to, the imposter syndrome that's coming up? This isn't a good idea. Who's going to want to hear this? I mean, these are all so natural things, but they are real. How
Yeah.
did you overcome those?
So it's through experience. It's you try something, it fits, it works, great, keep that, more of that. You try something else that doesn't work, it doesn't feel good, and it doesn't feel right. Less of that. And that's literally to this day what I do. I mean, even just a few months ago, I've changed things in terms of how we're going to deliver retreats and the types of retreats, because and I think I mentioned this to you when we were chatting, Lynette, initially. I said, like, the way I initially set up the retreats is I was going to have to rely on a lot of people, um, external people, to make these retreats work. But over time, I figured out, I'm like, why am I doing that, Darla? What are you so afraid of? Why? There's my colleague that I work with right now, she's my marketing person. She says this to me all the time, because I'll try and sneak it in there. We were just talking about a retreat we're doing in the fall. We had a planning meeting last week, and here I'll
Yeah.
give you an example. And she said to me, I said, you know what? Oh, wouldn't it be great to have so and so do an opening on this and talk about this? And she's literally looking at me in the screen. She said, no. She's like, no, so and so is not opening and having a discuss, going to be speaking about this. You're going to be doing it. Like, who knows better than you? And I just pause and I'm like, I don't know why I do that. Like, I have to catch myself, Lynette, because it's like I still like, I'm unsure. Some days I'm unsure that, like, in myself. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I have to continually push myself, in front to say, no, Darla, like you can do this. Like you need to be the one that is front and center and showing up, and stop trying to be in the background. Like
Right.
stop trying to like, don't be afraid. And so there is like, every day what I try and do is push myself more into my business instead of less, because anybody can build a business and hire a bunch of people to do stuff for you, but man, it takes a lot of courage to be the front person and show up every single day and be the person that you know like is the face and the
That's
voice
right.
of the company no matter what. And so I still struggle with that, but I work with a bunch of really great people that challenge me on that. And so what's happening now is less and less. I actually am designing things so it's me. It's
Right.
me and less other people, right?
And I
And
like that.
that's
There's a
been a
piece
good
there,
decision.
yeah, and that's amazing. And so I want to just talk a little bit more about that because there's that one about being the face of the organization because you are the organization, but there's this other piece where if you're not in the business creating, designing initially, then you really don't feel what you're supposed to be doing, what your business needs. And
Oh my
I've been
gosh,
guilty of as
totally.
well, where, I'm hiring people to do my Instagram or my social media or whatever. And because, or, and writing captions and things like that. And I realized as much as they're doing a great job, it wasn't really at the essence of what my business is. And nobody will know that unless like you have to do it. You have to be the creator behind it because it's what's in you that you're gifting the world.
Yeah.
And that's, you
It,
mentioned that in our conversation, our pre-call, and you said that you were like, wait, hold on a second. I'm building a company here that I'm not passionate about. And you knew at that moment you had to push people, a, a little further out, not away, but a further that you could get in there
no.
and really create from within, from where you wanted the company to go.
And
So
that is literally where I am today. I'm still
great.
like I'm more into that. I need to be more into, like, I will continue to move forward exactly in that in that space and in that direction for sure. So
Yeah,
that's
because as
that's
you're
a
in
new
flow, you're
discovery
keep.
for me.
Yeah, you're gonna as you're in flow, you're gonna pick up. You're gonna, you'll be at a presentation, and you'll be speaking, or you'll be kicking an event off, and you'll feel if it was the right way to kick that off. And
Yeah,
you could almost even as agile as to shift even in the middle of it. It really you'll never
yeah.
know unless you're doing it yourself. Okay, perfect. So you
It's
are at a
it's so
stage
true.
now, yeah, with Cedar and Age. Are you feeling good about where it's at? How is it doing? What's happening now?
Right. So here's the thing. Oh my gosh. I mean, we could just do a whole podcast on all of my learnings of business learnings of building a business from nothing.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a whole nother podcast. But I
yeah,
will say, oh my gosh, wow. Like it's like to dive into something and completely move into a space that you have zero knowledge on and no anything to rely on to help you is was very challenging, because you got to remember, as as we know, like I and as I've talked about, like, you get pretty comfortable after 17 years. Like, literally, you know what lever to pull. Oh yeah, okay, this happened. You pull this lever. Oh yeah, that happened. Like, there wasn't anything I hadn't seen, right? Been there,
right.
done that. I absolutely had it all figured out. So I literally was just on autopilot, because there wasn't, much new that could come my way that, would require me to be caught off guard. So, anyways, that said, holy cow. So then to go into completely like immerse yourself into like, you know, this completely different world, how to build a business, how to write a business plan, how to access money, grants, business coaches, like websites, social media, like, oh my God, it just goes on and on. And we haven't even got to the point of like developing the actual content, because
Programs.
here's the
Yeah.
thing. And the programs, exactly, like it's like, oh, okay, like the retreats, that sounds lovely. These retreats don't happen. They are as a result of like, oh my gosh, like hundreds of hours of work to develop content for these retreats. And here's where it's not just me, like I have a small team of people that has to help me do this. So literally Cedar and Sage for the first 6 months has just like, we just were, although we had launched our website, we had sort of social media, we had all of the assets saying, okay, we're a business. I wasn't incorporated, and as far as Revenue Canada was concerned, I was a
Yeah.
legit. But it was like, and people would be like, okay, so what's the update on Cedar and Sage? And I'd be like, nothing. Like, we're literally like hunkered down, head down, like we are developing our programs. And so that really was, so we just launched our corporate and our offerings, our retreat, like at the end of June of this year. Like,
Wow.
that's how long it's taken us to have our ducks in a row,
Right.
and feeling like we were ready to go out, so ready to go out and do what we're going to do, right?
Actually, I have a question for you on
So
that.
yeah.
A quick question on that. So, you said, well, we have websites and this and that, and it took 6 months for us to really get our ducks in a row. Was there one point? I mean, really, that's sort of your incubating period. Was there at one point where you might have caught yourself striving for perfection versus let's just get this launched, and with sort of in business lingo, minimal viable product, so that you could get it, learn it, and grow? Or were you at a stage of where you were like, did you ever have to just pull the trigger beyond perfection?
So here's how I'm going to answer that. I will say, going back to the previous point about relying too much on other people, I
Yeah.
think it's been a little bit of a messy journey thus far, because I um I would say I was the one that was saying, let's just launch, let's the good enough, that like it was actually other people around me that were the ones saying no, 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 no. Because remember, Lynette, I don't have a job. I have no income, at this
Yeah.
point. So I'm like nervous, right? So I am
Yeah.
pushing people. Like, I am
Yeah.
pushing forward, being like, okay, that's good. Let's just launch this. Let's just do that. So it was actually me. And so
Yeah.
thank goodness I had like a couple of really important, and have a couple of really important or vital people around me that are just like, no. And they're the ones that like sort of bring me down to center, to say, this isn't what we want to put out into the world. And then I would
Right.
stop and I would look and I would pause and I'd reflect and I'd be like, you're right. No, it's not. I'm so proud. Like, honestly, if you like all of like where we're at right now with our like, we launched a full corporate brochure and digital offerings. We are in major course development mode right now. I'm actually working with one of my course designers. We're doing a back and forth on a wonderful women's course that we're featuring this fall. It's called Shine.
Yeah.
Um, so, like, and this is how I know I'm in my element, Lynette, is like, this is where I show up all day long, is like the creative part of like digging into writing courses, developing courses, like the creative and the collaborative approach to like building this beautiful experience that women are going to, in the case of the Shine course, that women are going to have when they come to our course, let alone I can't wait to be in front of people, you know, like sort of like that. So I know that I'm on the right path just by
Right.
virtue of how I feel,
Feel.
like my heart, the way I feel when I'm developing these courses, like our content and our programs, and just the feeling I get knowing like how it's going to have, you know, impact on people, and how, you know, it could possibly change lives. And I hope it changes lives. Like I
Yeah, no,
hope,
that's perfect.
yeah,
And I love that you know, it's how you feel. And
yeah,
I really, I think that that's super important, you know, as you are on your path. It's that feeling that you want to, again, we talked earlier about going within. And when you have that feeling and it feels good, you just keep going. And because you're within, you've taken the time to be quiet. You've found your, you know, your moments of meditation and all that. And when you're not feeling good, it just means to take a slight pivot. And when you can catch those moments early, then you know you're shining right now. Your
yeah.
energy is coming through in the interview, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So I mean, I will just carry on. And again, it's a feeling. I'm getting there. This will continue to be a twisty road. You know, I continue to, the big thing for me is I continue to give myself space,
yeah,
to, and permission to not always be on every day, and to not always have
yeah,
the answers, and to, you know, just use my heart and listen, and, you know, just yeah, just you know, trust that, in myself, and just trust the people around me, that I'm in a good place, and that we're
yeah.
moving in the right direction. And I genuinely feel it, Lynette. I genuinely feel that Cedar and Sage is, the right company, exactly how it is, and it will just continue to evolve and do great things in the world. So that's, I believe that.
So you know what, you can probably thank yourself for, you know, having that one meeting in Ottawa that was just your whole you know, that cherry on the top for making the
Yeah.
shift.
And
So
you know what,
Darla,
Lynette? Just the
yeah,
last thing I was going to say is like, when I think back, like I remember just, I was, you know, you're having a, you have a, you know, a dust up with somebody, and you go and you leave, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna tell him, and I'm gonna write an email, and just wait, I hope that
yeah,
guy, he's gonna blah 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 blah, you know, you
yeah,
all of this stuff. And oh my gosh, I was just thinking about this not that long ago. He came up, he just popped in my head not that long ago, and I literally was just like, oh my gosh, I wonder how he's doing. Like, and I was like, and I hope he's doing well. I know he had ended up moving on from the organization. And I was just like, oh, I hope he's doing well. And, you know, oh, I wonder how his kids are doing, because you know, has these
yeah, yeah,
beautiful
yeah.
children
I
and
mean,
all this.
there's a person behind everybody, you know,
And I just,
exactly.
and it's
Yeah,
just like this, thank
yeah,
you, you
yeah,
know,
for
and
being the
just,
push.
yeah, and I just, if it wasn't for that, particular meeting on that particular day with that particular person, like, I don't know if we'd be sitting here talking, right? Like,
Yeah.
I could just still be on autopilot, you
Yeah,
know?
no, and that's great. And I love the laugh that you give with that. I could still be on autopilot, ha ha ha, but I'm not. So Darla, just, you know, I know that you said there's a whole other podcast to the business lessons, but if you could just, let's wrap this podcast up with like just the one or two things that you would pass on to the person that's listening to this, that is thinking about dipping their toe into something different, leaving that corporate 9 to 5, getting that freedom. What would be that one or two things that you would say to them?
Yeah. Get really clear on what you want
Right.
and what your, goals are, and, what is it you want to create, what is it you want to build, what is it you want to, what, like, just get really clear on what your business is. So that's number one, which should take you a lot of time. um, and,
Yeah.
the other thing I would say is, oh my gosh, I cannot think how I would have done this without building a bit of a community around me of
Yeah.
people, to help and support me. I can't thank enough, just the informal mentors that I have spent countless coffees and lunches with me out of their busy days, helping me in certain areas that I really needed help in. So building and having a couple of really solid people to help you
Yeah.
build your business will be really important. And then, like, the third thing is, don't launch your business before you're ready. Like, do
Yeah.
not do it. And if that takes you a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, like whatever it takes, like just, um, you know, uh, like just take your time and the steps needed to build your business. So when you do get to the place where you're able to launch and to
Yeah.
show the world your business, you are 100% confident that you have the best product and the best business out there. And
Yeah.
so that's what I would say. And then just the fourth thing, the final thing I would say
Perfect.
is
Yeah.
just in regards to people, I said, like, surround yourself with a bit of a community of experts and people that can support you because they have the expertise. Um, I made the one mistake I made was to let people in the very, very early days tell me and lead me in a direction sometimes
Yeah.
that didn't feel good, but I was too afraid to say something because I thought they were the experts. And now
Yeah.
thinking back, I'm like, I would never do that again because, oh my gosh, it wasted so much of my time and their time, energy, and resources. Like, you have such limited resources in most cases. And
Yeah.
so just know how to, when something doesn't feel right, just know when to say thank you, but no
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah. No, that's perfect.
Yes.
Darla, thank you so much. You've been amazing. It's quite the story and it's a really great journey. And I know we could keep drilling down and drilling on. So where can people find you?
Yeah, so we are on all of the major platforms for social, and it's just at Cedar and Sage Retreats.
Okay.
And I would love for folks, we have a fall retreat coming up on October 22nd in Saskatoon, and it's a 1 day abundance retreat. So I would love for folks to go to the website and sign up. We are launching that retreat, I think today, actually. If all
Okay.
if
Perfect.
all things go as planned, I'll check my phone after this podcast, and we'd love to invite you and have you as a guest at our upcoming retreat. And of course, if you are a business that is in need of a retreat, we would love to work with you as well. So go to our corporate offerings tab on our website and learn more about us there.
All right, Darla. Well, thank you so much for joining us or joining me and all of my listeners out there. That's wonderful. I think your story has been amazing, and it shows so much resilience and um, persistence, and really, that's what I guess you're going to need to uh, do make the change, leave
Mhm.
that career. So, thank you so
Well,
much, and
I
yeah,
I hope we can. I hope I can come on. Let's see if I can come on in a couple of years. I'd love to do before and after. I'd love
yeah.
to see where I'm at in a couple of years
Oh,
and share
yeah.
with your listeners. So it's still early days, but I have a lot of hope and knowing that good things are coming. So
Awesome. All right, Darla, thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.
take care, Lynette.
Okay.